President. Please be seated. The hearing is back in session. Before the chamber gives the floor to the defense teams for the accused, chamber would like to inform parties and the public that during the hearing this afternoon, Judge Yuatra has personal business and he is not able to attend these court hearings. After the deliberation and discussion with judges of the bench, the chamber decides to assign Judge Trumani to replace Judge Yuatra in this afternoon session. This decision is based on this decision is based on Internal Rule 79.4. And now the chamber gives the floor to the defense team to resume the line of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors, Counsel. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I have a few more questions that I would like to put to you. Before the lunch break, we were speaking about this special unit of lazy people, as you call it. I believe you also gave testimony earlier that you thought that the majority of the people who were working in that unit were base people. Is that indeed your testimony? And can you tell us why you knew, or how you come to know that they were in the majority base people in that special unit?
Answer. To my observation, when I was in the same unit as them, I mentioned this point already. We had our own clothing for 17 April people, so we could recognize the 17 April people by their clothing.
So it's on the basis of the clothes that the people in that special unit were wearing that you are saying that the majority in that special unit for lazy people consisted of base people. Is that correct?
Answer. Yes, that is correct.
Do you remember the name of the chief of this unit, the special unit of lazy people?
Answer. I do not know these individual names, but I could recognize his face.
Do you remember, or do you know to whom he himself had to report, who his superior was?
Answer. I do not know about it.
Okay, thank you. Now let me get back to a question about the approximately 97% of the workers who were apparently not to be considered lazy, working at the dam. We listened to the audio recording of your interview, and we heard that you say at one particular time that if your group had finished the work or not. You could continue the work the next day, and that you were not forced, and that you only were forced to work hard and nothing else. Is that something that you said, you remember saying to the investigators?
Answer. It appears that I made such statements.
And we also heard you say that as long as the workers in your group were not lazy, then there would not be any problem for them and for you. Is that correct as well? So as long as you're not lazy, no problem?
Answer. Yes, that is correct. Nothing happened to us.
So is it then fair to conclude that 97% of the workers at the dam site that you were working with in your unit had no problem?
Answer. That is true. There was no problem happening on them.
Now, one or two questions, Mr. Witness, about working times. There is a witness, and one or two seem to have confirmed this, that the lunch break was between either 11 and 2 o'clock or 11 and 1 o'clock. Is that a correct observation of these witnesses?
Answer. We rested from 11:30, and from that time we could have lunch, and we had to resume our work at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Some other witnesses who have testified before the trial chamber last week have also told us that there was a break in the morning session, a break of about 15 minutes right in the middle of the morning session, in the session before lunch. Is that correct as well?
Answer. Yes, that is correct. There was a short break in between that time.
Some witnesses have also given testimony about working at night. One has said that working at night was occasional, only sometimes, and one also said that it was only there was only working at night when the moon was waxing, so about once a month. Is that your recollection as well? Your recollection about the times working at night?
Answer. For night shift, yes, there were night shifts. And when there was special case, the lights would be turned on.
And can you explain us when there would be a special case? Under what circumstances would there be a special situation that would make the workers work at night?
Answer. Actually, we did not know the special situation that the light was turned on.
Thank you. Do you remember seeing heavy equipment at the dam site, such as bulldozers shoving away soil?
Answer. I never saw the heavy equipment, but after the collapse of 1979, I saw the heavy machinery such as bulldozer or tractors in the forest.
And were these, in your memory, the bulldozers and heavy equipment that had been left there by the authorities in the DK regime?
Answer. Yes, the government of the Democratic Cambodia left behind those heavy equipment when they were running away.
And in your recollection, do you know what kind of heavy equipment it was that you saw? Were they bulldozers, etc.? What kind of machinery did you see?
Answer. I noticed there were bulldozers and the excavator or excavators and the materials, I mean the iron or steel materials.
During the time that you worked at the 1st January dam work site, did you ever see soil collapse and soil subsequently burying workers, or did you never see that?
Answer. I never saw soil collapse, but I heard it happened at another place. I heard that there was soil collapse at the major work site where the earth was deeply dark, and there was soil collapse, and it resulted in the fatal accident.
Did you, while you worked there, also experience the use of explosives to soften up the rocky bottom?
Answer. They never used any kind of explosives.
Returning again to the food situation in your unit that worked at the dam, do you know who was responsible for bringing the food at the dam site where you worked? who was responsible for the food logistics?
Answer. For grow and the food situation, we walk to the hall to eat. No one brought food to our work sites, and the dining hall was about 1 kilometer away from our work site.
I understand, but do you know who brought the food to the dining hall where everybody was eating? How did the food get there, and who was responsible for bringing that food in the dining hall?
Answer. No one transported food to that place. We had a container with us, and we went to the kitchen, and at that place we could get food.
I apologize, maybe my question is not very clear. I'm trying to find out how the food that you ate had gotten there. Who had brought it to the place? Where did the food come from?
Answer. There was a chief of logistics at the Songkat, and there was a warehouse keeping rice. Cooks of units would go and fetch the amount of rice given by that chief. And as for gruel for workers, when it was time to have meal, we would bring our container to the dining hall and get our gruel.
This logistics chief, was he coming from the sector, or was he coming from a district?
Answer. I heard of his name, and he was living close to a place where I was living. Actually, this individual was a female, and her name was Night. She joined the movement, and as a result, she was appointed to be the chief. I mean, logistic chief.
So this female cadre was responsible for the 500 or 600 people that were working together. Is that correct?
Answer. She was in charge of the logistic for the Songkat. And in Songkat, there were 3 units, units of male worker, females, and youth units. And the composition of those units were of 500 to 600 members.
Is this female cadre that you just mentioned still alive today?
Answer. She passed away in 1980.
This morning you spoke briefly about a militiaman named Loon. I believe you also said this morning that you rarely saw him at the dam. He himself gave testimony to investigators, and he said that he had never been at the dam. Can you try to recollect if you ever saw him at the dam, and if yes, when that was?
Answer. I told the court already this morning. Most of the time he was working in villages. I rarely saw him at the 1st January dam site. I noticed his presence only one time, and I did not know why he was there.
Yes. Do you remember where you saw him, under which circumstances? Did he just pass by, or can you give us a little more detail?
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness. You may now proceed. International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to correct what I think is an inaccurate characterization of the statement that Lun gave. There is a point in his statement at which he says that he was never sent to guard the 1st January dam. But he also says that he saw Kai Pok come to inspect the 1st January dam, and that he was tasked with carrying earth at that construction site for 3 months. So the statement is not that he was never there. The statement is that he was there for 3 months.
Yes, I think he seems to limit it to guard. But the point was more, Mr. President, to ask the witness when he says rarely what that means. So I retract and ask the witness some more. Would like to ask the witness some more details about the word rarely. So it was once that you saw him. What else do you remember of this one occasion?
Answer. I saw him pass by. He was in charge of people in South village, so he could walk past to the work site where his people were working. Perhaps he went there to visit his workers from Kong Sao village.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Moving on to a next subject. This morning you said that you overheard people say something about 2 or 3 workers being taken away and thrown in a well and killed. Do you know the names of the people that you overheard?
Answer: I could recall their names, and they were the chiefs of youth units. They are alive.
Do you know how they knew about the fate of these workers? Had they seen it themselves, or had they in their turn subsequently hear it as well, or do you know the source of their apparent knowledge of the fate of these people?
Answer: I do not know. I only overheard about that.
Do you remember, I realize it's a long time ago, but do you remember their exact words? Do you remember exactly what you overheard?
Okay.
Answer: they said that keeping is no gain, taking away is no loss. They used this kind of saying at that time. It was better to smash one than keeping another one by mistake.
I understand, but that sounds very general. Did you hear them say anything specific about these 2 or 3 workers? Details as to which well, what time, thrown in by whom, why, any specific detail?
Answer: I do not recall it well. When I overheard it, I would like you to repeat your question.
My question is about any detail you might remember about this conversation that you said you overheard. Did they say which well these 2 workers were thrown in, by whom, at what time, why? Did you hear anything specific?
Answer: I do not recall the content of the statement. I only overheard that last night 2 or 3 people were thrown into a well, and I did not know the whereabouts of the well they were referring to.
I'll move on to my last questions, Mr. Witness. You spoke briefly this morning about a visit of a Chinese delegation. Do you know anything more specific? Do you know any names of Chinese leaders that came visiting the 1st January dam?
cannot recall any, nor stomach. I only knew that there was a visit by a delegation, and that we had to work harder on that day. There were many workers at the time, and I was at a far distance from the location of the delegation.
You were instructed to work harder when the delegation was visiting. Were you also instructed to put more soil in the baskets and to run with the soil rather than to walk?
Yes, on the day that we were to receive the delegation, we acted actively and we worked harder than the normal days that we worked.
And did that also include putting some extra soil in the baskets that you were carrying?
Yes, our baskets were fully loaded and we had to carry it quicker. And actually it was a self-conscious act, because we were actually told by our unit chief to work a bit harder on that particular day, and it lasted for only a few hours.
It's maybe a little bit difficult question that I'm going to ask you, but would it be possible for you to make a distinction in the amount of soil in terms of kilos that you would put on a normal day on your basket and on your basket in those few hours that a foreign delegation came to visit? Would you be able to make such an estimate?
On the normal working day, we put the dirt up to the rim of the basket, but on that particular day we loaded a bit more soil onto the basket.
It's a long time ago, I understand, but are you able to estimate how many kilos of soil you would typically carry?
It is difficult to give you an estimate.
I understand. My last question, Mr. Witness, do you know why the 1st January dam and the 6th January dam got their respective names? Why were the dams called the 1st January dam and the 6th January dam? Do you know?
I am not sure on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. I'm looking at my national colleague. We're done. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you. The Chamber now hands the floor to Kiev Sampon's defense. You can proceed, the Council.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, witness. My name is Anta Guisset. I am the co-international counsel of Mr. Kyosampon. I'm going to put to you a few brief questions in order to obtain some clarification with regard to your testimony. I believe I understood that when the dam was inaugurated, the 1 January dam was inaugurated, you had already started working on that dam. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
And I also understood that you had worked there for a little less than 3 months. So my question is, after having finished your job on the 1st January dam, did you have to go back to the dam as the work was progressing on that dam?
I went back before the completion of the dam project.
I understood that. Well, in fact, my question is, after having finished working on the dam, did you go back to the dam for any reason? For example, if there was a ceremony when the dam was completed.
When the project was concluded, I did not return to the site.
You said that this dam was rather large, and if you took into consideration the canals, it would spread over many, many kilometers. So can we say that when you worked on that dam, you were only working on a specific site? That is to say that you did not go visit the other sites that were a bit further away from the work site where you were.
Je vais peut-être poser un...
Maybe I should rephrase my question because I did not obtain an answer from you. So my question was, in fact, do we agree that when you worked on that work site, on the 1 January dam work site, you only worked in one specific location on the site? That is to say that you did not go visit all of the other sites that spread over several tens of kilometers.
Yes, that is correct. I agree to your statement.
And getting back to what you said earlier to my colleague, you said that at the site where you were working, you did not see any machines. But then you said that after the fall of the regime, you saw machines in the forest. So my question is the following. Can we say that it is possible that machines were not used when you worked in your specific part of the worksite, but that maybe machines were used in other parts of the worksite without you having been able to see them.
I do not know about that because we worked far away from one another, and after the fall of the regime in 1979, I saw some heavy machineries, including bulldozers and a workshop with spare parts.
That is specifically what I wanted to get to. In your statement E3/5267, French ERN 00482-932, in Khmer 00271407, English 00282354. This is what was noted in your statement. This dam was built out of soil only and built by hand. Free translation. And with regard to the machines that you saw responding to Judge Lafergne, that the dam had been built out of concrete and iron. However, you say here that this dam was only built out of earth. So this means that you're only speaking about the part that you worked on. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. However, while working there, we only heard that concrete was used for other parts of the dam, although we did not see it personally.
Another point I would like to focus on with you is the meetings you described. You spoke about meetings that were held at the end of the day when you finished working. And I would like to know if during one of these meetings, your unit chief or someone else explained to you why this dam was being built. You said to my colleague a little earlier on that this dam was used after 1978 and used, in fact, until the 1990s. So my question is, during these meetings that were held on the worksite, were you told what the purpose was of this dam or not?
They did not tell us about the use or the benefit of the dam. What they actually told us was for us to strive hard in our work.
And you, who attended the inauguration of this dam, in fact, you said that even if you were far away, you heard speeches in the distance and through the loudspeakers. So on that day, were you told what the purpose was of the dam, or don't you remember?
I cannot recall it, and Yes, simply put, I cannot recall it, although I heard something from a distance.
Il n'y a pas de souci.
There's no problem. If you don't remember, I will not bother you anymore about this. I would like simply to get back to what you said to the co-investigation judges and to a point that you started discussing with my colleague. But I would like, however, to look more specifically at what you said exactly when you spoke to the investigators, because here we have the official transcript of this interview, and I would like to present a few segments to you and then ask you questions about these. So this is document D166.82.1, French ERN 01101656, Khmer 011011597, and there is no English version, but this is the transcript of audio document D66/E82R, and the segments I would like to look at are between 1 hour 33 and 5 seconds and 1:35 and 30 seconds. And you speak about this point with my colleague, but however, I'd like to get back to what you said exactly on that day. This is the question that was put to you regarding the way the work was organized in your group. And the investigator's question, Hem Hoi, is the following. But once you were split into subgroups, how was the work quota assigned to each members? How many cubic meters of soil did each 3 member groups have to transport? And your answer was the following. This would vary depending on the size of the canal. We believe that each person would have to dig 1 cubic meter of soil per day. And the investigator continues. But you personally, how many cubic meters of soil did you have to transport every day? And you answer, per day, yes? And the investigator continues. Do you still remember? And here, your answer is the following. Each one had to transport 1 cubic meter of soil per day along the canal. If we couldn't do so, we would not continue working normally. However, it was not useful to lie about our performance at work because we were not doing anything wrong. Since we couldn't reach the quota, we had to continue the next day. End of quote. Free translation. So my first question in relation to this first segment is, first of all, do you remember having said that to the investigator? And can you confirm that when you were not able to meet the quota, you would have to continue the following day?
I'd like to clarify this matter. When I spoke about a 1 meter long, I meant the work done for the smaller feeding canal at the commune. That is, the top part was 5 meter wide and the lower part of the canal was 4 meter wide. And the embankment itself was only about 1 meter wide. But this is not about the first January Dam work site. For the first January Dam work site, our unit was subdivided into 3 groups, and we had to do the work collectively per group. And when I refer to the 1 meter long of soil that we had to carry, I refer to a separate work site for smaller canals, and the depth varied
Alors,
So my question is in fact going to focus on another part to make sure that we agree. Later in this same transcript you say the following: the work quota was, for example, organized as follows. If a subgroup would receive a quota of 3 meters of soil to be carried, the 3 members would have to work together. So the investigator's question: all 3 of them, and your answer: if we could not finish the job, we could continue the next day unless we would demonstrate perseverance in our work. End of quote. Free translation. So here again, are you speaking about the canals that are not connected with the 1st January dam, or were these directions? Do these directions correspond to your work on the 1 January dam?
For the first January dam project, my unit was subdivided into 3 groups, and as I said, we worked collectively, and we tried our best whether we could complete the daily quota or not. And if we could not finish it, we had to continue working it the next day, compounded with the new quota for the next day.
And is it true that for you it was hard to assess exactly what a cubic meter of quota represented, what that quota meant?
We continued digging and we did not stop. We had to work to the best of our knowledge, and although we completed the daily quota, we didn't rest earlier. We had to continue working until the end of the working hours. So it means that we had to work actively from the start of the working hours until the end of the working hours.
I understood that part of your testimony, witness. My question is somewhat different. I understood that you worked, you did your best, but my question is, were you able to assess what a cubic meter meant? I know that you were digging, but were you able to understand what the volume represented in terms of cubic meters? And if you were not, no problem, I will move on to another point.
The work plan we received from the work regiment, for instance, a number of meters that we had to dig, then the work plan was subdivided into 3 groups, and each group had to work collectively to complete the quota. And of course, I could not tell you the volume of the cubic meter that each group had to dig collectively.
Thank you. That's exactly, in fact, that was exactly the point of my question. A last point that I'd like to discuss with you is you spoke about a certain Lun with the co-prosecutor and also with my colleague. And I believe I understood from your testimony that this Lun died 3 or 4 years ago. In any case, this is what I noted down. So can you confirm this, or we misunderstood?
never said that he passed away. However, he disappeared after he was released from prison in 1979. I met him briefly after he's released. And from 1980, he disappeared as he didn't dare to stay in his village. And since then, I have never met him, and I learned that he tries to avoid meeting with Tamok, but I do not know whether he's dead or alive. Or maybe I cannot forget what I said.
And getting back to one of the questions that was put to you by my colleague a little earlier on, during the time when you were on the worksite, did you ever see Leun among the units that were digging the canals on the worksite?
If I saw them walking briefly, but I did not know whether they belongs to any unit.
In the translation, I got a plural. So can you tell me if you're speaking about one single person or one person? I was speaking about Leun, in fact, in my question.
I only refer to one person.
Et est-ce que vous savez...
And do you know whether militias from your commune were assigned to work at the 1st January dam work site at any point in time?
I am unsure on this point.
Et dernière question avant.
Last question before I give the floor to my learned colleague Ong Samon, who would also have some questions for you. On the day you saw Leun on the 1st January dam work site, did you see him transporting earth?
Yes, I saw him briefly walking past by where I worked.
Monsieur le Président, je n'ai pas d'autres questions.
Mr. President, I have no further questions for the witness. I now give the floor to my colleague, Ong Samon.
President, thank you, and Councillor Kong Samon, you have the floor. Kong Samon, thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honours, all parties, and good afternoon, Mr. Utsain. I have some questions that I need to seek your clarification. As for your date of birth, you said you came to study in Phnom Penh, and after the 17th April 1975 liberation, you returned to your native village. And that it was in Kansai village, Kampong Thmo, Santuk, Kampong Thom province. My question to you is the following. Were your parents and siblings staying in the village when you returned? Answer. During the war period of 1970s, my elder sister came to live in Phnom Penh with her husband and children, and my father also came along to live in Phnom Penh. I myself came with her, And at the my native village, only my other elder sister and my mother lived there. On the 17 or 16 April 1975, due to the overcrowded number of people in the house, I actually walked from Kirirum to my uncle's house in Tulko, and that happened on the 15th. And on the 16th, there were heavy aerial bombardments, and on the 17th, the 5 of us packed our belongings and food, and we were told to leave Phnom Penh for 2 or 3 days. So we did. And we were en route, National Road number 5, and it took us 1 full month to reach Kampong Thmo. And I didn't know the whereabouts of my other sister then. Question, and allow me to clarify it based on your statement. There were 2 groups. One was the best people, including your mother and your other sister. As for you and your father, both of you were considered 17 April people. Am I correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. Question. Regarding food ration, while you worked in your unit, were the 17 April workers ate communally with the best people, or were you given a separate kind of food? Answer, in our second youth regiment, and there were hundreds of us there, there was only one dining hall, and everyone receives the same food supply from the kitchen. We were given our individual food ration, and we could eat wherever we could in the area of the kitchen. Question, so the cook prepared food, and then each worker will be given a set of daily food ration. Am I correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. Question, also again on the issue of food ration. Did the cook prepare separate food for the best people and the 17 April people, or was the food given to each worker prepared and cooked in the same cooking pot? Answer, the food was from the same cooking pot. However, for the best people or chief of unit or chief of a regiment, the person who was in charge for the economic was also a best person. So we noticed that sometimes 2 ladles of food were given to a best person, and for the 17 April people, we were only given 1 ladle each. Question, and did you observe that there was any protest to this uneven food distribution? Answer: no one dared to challenge food ration. Question: can you tell the court if you observe that 17 April workers received less food than the best people who worked in the same unit? I mean, if you know the names of those 17 April people who worked in the same unit. Answer: I cannot remember the names. However, when we went to receive our food, there was a crowd of workers swarmed the kitchen area, and of course the cook and the people who distributing the food could recognize who were the 17 April people and who were the best people. And as I said earlier, they specifically made that identification based on the clothes that we were wearing. Question: so based on your statement, food distribution was at the sole discretion of the cook or the food distributor, so to say, and there was no instruction from the upper echelon regulating these uneven food distributions amongst the old and the new people. And there was no instruction from the above. However, it was those people who worked in the economic section and the chief of the duty regiment who made such instructions. Question: you said that you belong to the 2nd Duty Regiment. Did the regiment belong to the district, sector, or zone? Answer: our unit belongs to the Kampong Thmo commune and not the district or the province or the sector. Question: in relation to what Barai Chon Dai Pagoda, but you said Barai Son Dai Pagoda. Can you tell us the difference in the two names? President, Mr. Witness, please observe the microphone. Witness: in writing, it is read Barai Chuan Dai, but in the spoken form, it's Barai San Dai. It's like tro so, which refer to cucumber, but in the spoken form, it is pronounced ta so. Question: in relation to your written record of interview, that is E3/5267, and on the Khmer EN page 0027 1412, and English 0028 2358, and in French 0048 2936. And I'd like to make a quote from the statement. You were asked, about senior leaders, whether they came to inspect the work site, and your response, and let me quote, the leader of the zone, Kaipo, came once to inaugurate the first January Dam work site. End of quote. Was Kaipo the zone leader? Was the one who actually came to inaugurate the first January Dam work site, or was someone else who inaugurated the work site? Answer. During the inauguration day, we were told that Sini Ong Ka came to inaugurate the first January Dam work site, and there were also Chinese visitors. And from that day, I heard of that name, that is Kai Po, and I do not know who else came to inaugurate the work site on that day. Question. How did you know that Kai Po came to inaugurate the first January Dam work site? Answer. Ta Tapok had a house at the first January Dam work site, and he frequently came to the work site. Therefore, I heard of his name rather often at the time. However, I did not see him physically. Question. You spoke at length about your work at the first January Dam work site, and that also you worked at various other canal work sites at the commune. And you also told the court about the total length of the first January Dam work site and the sixth January Dam work site, which is roughly 60 kilometers. Can you tell the court where the first January Dam started and where it ended? Answer. Yes, I can do that. However, only by 1990 did I learn about the length of the first January Dam work site, as we did the measurement. And actually, the dam was built to block the water from the first and the sixth January Dam canals. And we did the measurement for the entire length of the dam, and it ran up to 60 kilometers. However, during the regime while I was working there, I did not know anything at all about the length of the dam or where it was heading through. Question. Can you tell the court just about the first January Dam, where it starts and where it ends? Answer. From the start of the main construction of the 10 sluices water gate, to Barai district, it runs 33 kilometers. That is towards the Kampong Cham, toward the border of the Kampong Cham province, and it runs through the other side as well. Question: and where did you work? At which segment of the dam you worked during the decay period? Answer: yes, I remember that. I worked at an area called Tabaing Kaung. There was a construction there called Tukvul, and from that point, we, the 2nd Youth Regiment, were responsible for some length of the building of the dam. Question: I have a last question to you in relation to a person named Lun. You confirmed that Lun was a militiaman and his work involved in the arrest of certain individuals. Further, you added that Lun was arrested by a judicial authority and detained subsequently. Can you tell the court when he was detained, or how long was he detained? Answer: I cannot recall when Lun was arrested. However, when I met inmates from Kampong Thum prison who told me that Lun had been arrested and detained, and I said, if that is the case, then he would survive, as he would avoid the revenge by villagers. And after he was released, he came to attend a musical performance for a wedding around 1985 or 86. And during that period, he noticed that there were many former 17 April workers, people resided in the village, so he was scared, and I never saw him coming to the village again. Question: and can you recall exactly as to when Lun disappeared from your village before he was detained? President, Mr. Witness, please observe the microphone. Witness: during the late 1978, I heard about the activities in the army, and people who worked at the commune started to flee, and some workers from the youth regiments that I worked in also returned to their respective homes in the village. Council, thank you, Mr. Otsen and Mr. President. I am done. President, thank you. Today's proceeding has come to an adjournment today, and the reserve witness to TCW 887 has some health issue due to long travel today, so we cannot commence hearing the testimony this afternoon. Therefore, we adjourn for today's proceedings and resume it tomorrow, that is 4th June 2015, commencing from 9 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow, the Chamber will hear testimony of a witness, that is through TCW 887. This information is for the concerned parties and the public. And Mr. Otsain, the Chamber is grateful of your presence and time to testify before us. Your testimony may contribute to ascertaining the truth in this matter, and you are no longer required to be present in the courtroom. Therefore, you may return to wherever you wish to go. We wish you all the best and bon voyage. Court officer, in collaboration with WISU, please make necessary transportation for Mr. Otsain to return to. And security personnel, you are instructed to take the two accused, Nunchi and Kisampon, back to the detention facility and have them return to attend the proceedings tomorrow before 9 o'clock in the morning. The court is now adjourned.